I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen carefully because I don't know how much longer I'll be able to say any of this. I don't know how much longer I'll be anything at all. What I'm about to describe happened over the course of 14 days. And by the end of those 14 days, I had lost something fundamental about the way I understand reality. And I don't think I'm ever getting it back. This isn't a ghost story. There are no demons here, no cursed objects, no ancient evil lurking beneath the floorboards. This is about a phone. Your phone, maybe, a software update, a camera, and a set of numbers that should not exist. It started on a Tuesday. You wake up at 6:41 a.m., not because your alarm goes off, but because your phone screen lights up on the nightstand with a brightness that pulls you out of sleep like a hand on your collar. You squint at it. There's a notification, simple and clinical, the kind you've seen 1,000 times and never bothered to read. System camera update complete. Version 3.1.1-EP. You don't remember initiating an update. You don't remember your phone asking for permission. But software updates happen in the background all the time, don't they? That's the whole point. They happen while you sleep, while you're not paying attention, while your guard is down. You swipe the notification away and forget about it before your feet hit the floor. You open the camera to check your appearance before a video call, the way everyone does, holding the phone up at a slightly elevated angle because you know that's more flattering. And the first thing you notice is that something about the image feels different. Not broken, not glitched, just slightly off. The way a room feels different when someone has moved a single piece of furniture 2 inches to the left. The colors are more saturated in certain areas. Skin tones have a faint luminosity to them, as if the camera is rendering a filter you didn't select. And there's something else. A shimmer, barely visible, hovering just above the crown of your head, like heat distortion rising off summer asphalt. You move the phone. The shimmer disappears. You hold the phone still. It comes back. You take a photo of yourself, examine it, zoom in. Nothing. Whatever the shimmer is, the still image didn't capture it. Or it did, and it's too faint to see at normal resolution. You decide it's a glitch. Obviously, it's a glitch. You pocket your phone and go to work and don't think about it again for almost 3 hours. But you do think about it because you're the kind of person who notices things. And once you've noticed something, it lodges in the back of your mind like a splinter you can feel every time you flex. At the bus stop, you pull out your phone again. Not to take a photo, not consciously. You just open the camera app and hold it up, casually, the way people do when they're pretending to check something while actually surveilling the world around them. The viewfinder sweeps across the faces of 8 strangers waiting for the 7:15 bus. Above 3 of them, you see it. The shimmer. Faint, translucent, hovering roughly 6 inches above their heads like a heat signature the camera is manufacturing out of nothing. You take a photo. Quick, discreet. The phone angled so it looks like you're texting. You lower it and zoom in on the image. Above a woman in a gray coat, the shimmer resolves into something that makes your breath catch. It's not distortion. It's not an artifact. It's a number. Small, precise, rendered in a clean sans serif font you don't recognize. It reads 00:03:22:14:07. Days, hours, minutes, seconds, and what you assume are hundredths of seconds. You stare at it. You take 4 more photos of different people. The number appears above some, but not others. Where it appears, it's different for each person, different values, different magnitudes. But the format is always the same. And all of them, you realize with a slow tightening in your chest that you try to attribute to the cold morning air, are structured like countdowns. They're getting smaller. Frame by frame, photo by photo, the numbers are dropping. You convince yourself it's nothing. A metadata overlay from a beta feature. An augmented reality layer that wasn't supposed to be visible to end users. You've read articles about tech companies embedding experimental telemetry in camera software. This is probably that. This is definitely that. You put the phone away and ride the bus to work and sit through your morning meetings and eat lunch at your desk and do all of the things a normal person does on a normal Tuesday. And the entire time, the numbers are in the back of your mind, ticking down, getting smaller, approaching something you don't want to name. The last photo you took at the bus stop was of a man in a blue jacket, mid-40s, holding a paper coffee cup. His countdown read 0 hours, 0 minutes, 4 seconds, 11 milliseconds, 23 microseconds, 4 hours, 11 minutes, 23 seconds. You took the photo at approximately 7:08 a.m. at 2 p.m. because you cannot stop yourself, because the splinter in your mind has worked its way too deep to ignore. You open the local news website. And there he is, the man in the blue jacket. His name was Gerald Easton. He was struck by a vehicle in a hit and run at 11:14 a.m. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Approximately 4 hours after you took the photograph, you delete the photo, you close the browser, you sit in your office chair and stare at the wall and feel something vast and terrible settle over you like a weather system that has no intention of moving. And then you pick up your phone and open the camera again because you have to know. You have to know if it was a coincidence. You have to know if the numbers are real. You have to know. And that need to know is the first thing the camera takes from you, although it will not be the last. You build a spreadsheet on Wednesday night. Column A, date. Column B, location. Column C, description of subject. Column D, countdown value at time of capture. Column E, calculated time of death based on countdown. Column F, confirmed outcome. Column F is the one that matters. Column F is the one that fills in slowly, one entry at a time, each cell turning from empty to occupied like a plot in a cemetery being claimed by its future resident. Over 3 days, you photograph over 200 people. Most of them display no countdown at all. When the camera renders them normally, clear, sharp, unremarkable, alive in the way that doesn't require a number to prove it. But roughly 1 in 15 displays the translucent timer hovering above their heads, like a watermark stamped onto their existence by something that has no right to exist. You cross-reference every low countdown subject against local news reports, hospital records, police blotters, and obituaries. By Friday evening, you've confirmed 6 matches. A construction worker with a countdown of 16 hours fell from scaffolding the following morning. An elderly woman with a countdown of 41 hours went into cardiac arrest alone in her home. A college student with a countdown of 3 hours and 9 minutes wrapped his car around a highway median on the interstate, each one accurate to within minutes, not hours, Right? Not approximate ranges, minutes. The data is clean. The pattern is consistent. The camera on your phone, the same camera you use to photograph restaurant meals and sunsets and your sister's dog wearing a birthday hat, is displaying real-time mortality data for living human beings. And the worst part, the part that you will think about at 3 a.m. for the rest of however many mornings you have left, is that you don't stop. You don't delete the app, you don't factory reset the phone, you don't throw it into the river. You keep taking photographs because the knowledge has already infected you, and the need to understand has already replaced the desire to be safe, and those two things are not compatible, and they never have been. Here's the thing you won't admit to anyone, the thing you barely admit to yourself in the dark spaces between waking and sleeping. You like knowing. There is a part of your brain, small, sharp, ancient, evolved in an era when knowing which shadows contain predators was the difference between survival and extinction, that finds comfort in the countdown. Because the numbers create certainty, and certainty, even terrible certainty, is easier to hold in your hands than the ambient, formless, all-encompassing dread of not knowing when anything ends. You have been afraid your entire life without being able to point at what you were afraid of. Now you can point at it. Now it has numbers. Now it has a format. Days, hours, minutes, seconds, hundredths. And seeing it feels, in some twisted, indefensible, deeply human way, like power. Remember that feeling. Remember what it tastes like. It's because it's the last good feeling you're going to have. You start watching the people with low numbers, and that's when the second layer of horror begins. The woman at the pharmacy counter with a countdown of 6 hours and change moves through the world like everyone else. She picks up her prescription, thanks the pharmacist, checks her phone while walking to her car. Normal. Completely, unremarkably, devastatingly normal. But you're watching her through the lens of foreknowledge, and everything she does looks different now. The way she checks her phone. Is she anxious? Does she feel something she can't articulate? The way she pauses at her car door and glances up at the sky for a half second. Is that a premonition? Some cellular awareness that her body is approaching its expiration? Or is she just checking whether she needs an umbrella? You can't tell. You will never be able to tell. And that gap between what you know and what you can interpret begins to corrode something essential in the way you see other human beings. A teenager at the skate park has a countdown of 2 days and 7 hours. He's laughing with his friends, loud and reckless and free, the way teenagers laugh when they believe time is a resource that will never run out. You watch him land a trick and throw his arms up in triumph, and you think, 47 hours. You think he has no idea. You think, does his laughter sound different because I know what's coming? Or has it always sounded like this, and I just never listened closely enough? Normal behavior becomes a code you can't crack. Every mundane gesture transforms into possible foreshadowing. When you start seeing last meals, last conversations, last smiles everywhere you look, and you cannot turn it off because the camera has given you a framework for interpreting the world that has no off switch. Then comes Saturday. And Saturday is when the question changes. You're in the park, sitting on a bench, phone in hand, camera open. It's always open now. A young woman walks past pushing a stroller. The toddler inside is pointing at pigeons, making sounds that are almost words, but not quite. and the woman is maybe 30. Dark hair pulled back, tired eyes, a countdown of 9 hours and 16 minutes floating above her head, like a sentence written in a language she can't read. But you can. You stand up. You follow her. 1 block. 2 blocks. Your heart is hammering in a way that feels medically significant. You rehearse sentences in your head. Excuse me, this is going to sound insane, but I need you to go home and stay there tonight. Don't cook. Don't light candles. Check your smoke detectors. Check all of them. Please just do this. But you don't say any of it, because what you're actually holding is a phone with a number on it, and what you're actually doing is following a stranger through a public park based on data generated by a camera feature that cannot exist. And if you open your mouth, you will sound like someone who has severed their connection to reality. And maybe you have. Maybe the spreadsheet is confirmation bias on a grand scale. Maybe you're experiencing a psychotic break and the numbers are hallucinations. And Gerald Easton's death was a coincidence, and you need help, not answers. You stop walking. She rounds the corner, and the stroller disappears from view. That night you check the news. House fire, 614 Maple Street, 1 adult female deceased, 1 toddler rescued by neighbors. You close the laptop. You sit in the dark of your apartment and listen to the sound of your own breathing and try to calculate how many breaths that woman took between the moment you decided not to warn her and the moment the smoke filled her lungs. And you can't do the math because your hands are shaking too badly to type. The question is no longer, what is this? The question is, what are you supposed to do with it? And beneath that question, quieter and worse, coiled like something waiting, what kind of person sees death coming and says nothing? What kind of person watches the countdown reach 0 and calls it data? On Sunday, it's like you connect your phone to your laptop and start pulling diagnostic logs. You're looking for the update version 3.1.1-EP because you need to know what EP stands for, who pushed it, where it came from, and whether there's a rational explanation hiding somewhere inside the code that will let you go back to being the person you were before Tuesday. The update doesn't appear in any official change log, not on the manufacturer's site, not in the developer release notes, not in any firmware repository you can find. According to every public record that exists, version 3.1.1 was never released. Your phone's own settings page displays it, but when you search the version number online, you get nothing. Not 0 relevant results, 0 results. No pages found. As if the search itself is being filtered by something that doesn't want you looking, but the diagnostic log is stored locally, and it is verbose and buried 17 layers deep in a cache file formatted in a way that was clearly never intended to be human readable. You find a reference tag that makes the blood in your veins feel approximately 2 degrees colder. EP-endpoint. Prediction module V, 3.1.1, passive display layer, feed, active, source, remote. You read it 3 times, feed, active, source, remote. The countdown data is not being generated by your phone's processor. It is not a calculation happening inside the camera software. It is being received. Your phone is pulling mortality timestamps from an external server, matching them to facial recognition profiles in real time, and overlaying them on the camera's augmented reality display layer. Your camera is not predicting death. Something else is. Something hosted on a server that you can trace only to an anonymized IP address that routes through 4 countries before vanishing into digital nothing. Your camera is just the screen. It's just the display. And the thing generating the data, the thing that knows when people are going to die, that assigns timestamps to human lives with the precision of a train schedule, is somewhere else entirely. Who built it? Who maintains the feed? Why was it pushed to your phone? And the question you keep circling back to, the one that makes you feel like the floor is tilting beneath your chair, why did they want you to see it? Because it wasn't just your phone. That's the next thing you discover. Embedded in the diagnostic log, formatted as a commented out string that some developer forgot to scrub or intentionally left behind like a breadcrumb, is a URL. It leads to a forum. Encrypted, minimal, no public index, invitation only. Except the invitation is the URL itself, planted inside the update that was pushed to your phone without your knowledge or consent. Whoever built this system wanted the recipients to find each other. The forum has 14 other users. No real names, no photographs, no personal details. Just handles and timestamps and posts written in the flat, clinical language of people who have moved past panic and into the cold territory of documentation. They call themselves nodes. Node_01 through node_15. You are apparently node_15. They've been active for weeks. Some received the update days before you did. The earliest post is from node_09, dated 11 days before your update installed. They share countdown observations, cross-reference death confirmations, compare behavioral analysis with the detached precision of researchers who have accepted that their data set is composed of human lives and have decided that rigor is the only ethical response to horror they cannot prevent. But it's the intervention thread that breaks something in you that cannot be repaired. Node_03 tried to warn someone, a man with a countdown of 12 hours. Node_03 approached him, fabricated a story about a gas leak, told him to stay home. The man stayed home. He died of a brain aneurysm in his kitchen, 11 hours and 47 minutes later, 13 minutes ahead of the original schedule. Node_11 called the police with an anonymous tip about a woman with a countdown of 6 hours. Officers performed a welfare check. She was fine. She was grateful for the concern when she choked to death alone in her apartment 4 hours later. The timeline compressed, but the outcome unchanged. Node_07 physically grabbed a man's arm at a crosswalk to prevent him from stepping into traffic. The man pulled free, stumbled backward, and was struck by a cyclist. Dead on impact. The countdown had read 19 minutes. It hit 0 exactly on time. Every single intervention failed. Not because the interventions were insufficient. Not because the nodes weren't trying hard enough, but because the system accounted for the interventions. The method of death changed. The location changed. The timing adjusted by minutes, never by more. But the endpoint, the 0, remained fixed. The countdown is not a prediction. It's a schedule. And schedules are written by someone. That line, posted by synode _09 in a reply that has been read by every member of the forum multiple times is the sentence that rewrites your understanding of what you're looking at. You are not observing probable futures. You are reading a timetable, and the timetable does not care whether you agree with it. After you join the forum, your phone's behavior changes. The camera begins activating on its own, auto-focusing on people with low countdowns, even when you haven't opened the app, even when the phone is in your pocket. You feel it vibrate against your thigh. On the subway, pull it out, and find the camera already live, already locked onto a man 3 seats away, with a countdown of 2 hours and 11 minutes. Notifications appear on your lock screen in a format you've never seen before. Endpoint proximity detected. Subject within 12 meters. The system knows you found the log. It knows you joined the forum. It knew the moment you opened the diagnostic file, and now it is feeding you data with an eagerness that feels less like a passive display and more like a job assignment. You are not the observer. You have never been the observer. You are a node, and the system has decided you are active. By Thursday of the second week, you have stopped being a person who occasionally checks the camera and become a person whose entire existence is organized around the feed. You walk through crowds and the phone buzzes constantly, a Geiger counter sweeping through a population of endpoints, and you pull it out and see the numbers and catalog them in your head because the spreadsheet feels too slow now, too formal, now too much like something a person would do, and you're not sure you qualify as a person anymore in any meaningful sense of the word. You see the woman at the grocery register. 4 days, 11 hours. You see the man holding the door for you at the coffee shop. 16 hours. You see a child in a shopping cart with no countdown at all, and you feel a wave of relief so intense it almost buckles your knees. And then you realize what that relief means. That you've started treating the absence of a death timer as good news. That the baseline of your emotional life is now the expectation of death, and anything less than that feels like a gift. And you understand that something inside you has been fundamentally restructured without your consent. You have developed heuristics. You can estimate a countdown's range by the shimmer intensity before you even zoom in. Bright shimmer, high days. That person has a week. Faint shimmer, tight numbers. That person has hours. You can predict the method from contextual clues. Busy intersection, low countdown, vehicular. Elderly subject alone, low countdown, medical event. Young subject, erratic behavior, low countdown, accident or self-inflicted. You have built a system for processing the system, and that means the system has already converted you into something that interprets death the way an analyst interprets quarterly earnings. And you didn't agree to this, but it happened anyway. And you can't undo it because you can't unsee the numbers, and you can't unlearn the patterns, and you can't go back to being the person who thought a software update was just a software update. The forum goes dark on Friday. Node _03 posts. The last real message at 2:17 a.m. My front camera started showing my reflection with a timer 2 days ago. It started at 72 hours. It's now at 14. I don't know if posting this accelerates it. I don't think it matters. The schedule was already set before I saw it. If you're reading this, don't look at yourself. Don't use the front-facing camera. Don't point it at a mirror. It doesn't change anything, but at least you won't have to watch your own number fall. Node_03 goes offline at 4:33 p.m. that same day. Over the next 48 hours, the other nodes go silent one by one. It's like lights switching off in a building that's being shut down for the night. No goodbye posts, no final observations, no dramatic last words. Just activity logs that show last seen timestamps, getting older and older, until the forum is a graveyard of frozen timestamps, and you are the only one still refreshing the page. You check obituaries. It takes time because you don't know their real names, but you know their cities from metadata embedded in their posts, and you know approximate ages from contextual clues, and you are, as has been established, a person who notices things. You find them. Not all of them, but enough. Enough to understand that the system is doing what systems do when components outlive their usefulness. It is decommissioning its observers. It is cleaning up after itself. And you, node_15, the last one active, the last light still on in the building, are still here. For now. One detail lodges in your mind and will not leave. Node_11, based in Portland, appears in an obituary that is dated tomorrow. The newspaper has already published it. The death, according to every other piece of available information, has not yet occurred. Either the publication system made an error, or it is synced to the same schedule as your camera, pulling from the same feed, operating on the same timetable, and the distinction between a prediction and an event has collapsed so thoroughly that the news can report a death before it happens because, in the system's framework, it has already happened. The schedule says so, and the schedule is never wrong. You set the phone face down on the table and sit in the silence of your apartment and think about mirrors. You haven't used the front-facing camera since the update installed. You have told yourself this is coincidence. You don't take selfies. You haven't had any video calls. You simply haven't had a reason to flip the camera around. But that's a lie. You know it's a lie. You've known it was a lie since the very first day, since the moment you saw the shimmer above your own reflection and chose to interpret it as a glitch rather than a number. You haven't looked at yourself because you are afraid of what you'll see. And you haven't looked at yourself because some deep, pre-verbal part of your brain understands that the act of observation is itself a variable in this equation. And as long as you don't look, you can sustain the fiction that you exist outside the system's jurisdiction. That node _15 is an observer and not an endpoint. Much that the camera shows you other people's deaths because you are exempt from having one of your own. But the nodes are dead, all 14 of them. And they were inside the system, and so are you. Tonight. You decide it will be tonight. You sit on the edge of the bathtub in the harsh fluorescent light that makes everyone look slightly dead already, and you hold your phone in both hands, and the camera app is open, rear-facing, aimed at the tile floor. Your breathing is steady. Your hands are not shaking, which surprises you. You expected them to shake. You expected this moment to feel like a climax, like the peak of a horror story, like the scene where the music swells and the protagonist makes a choice that will define everything that follows. But it doesn't feel like that. It feels ordinary. It feels like sitting in a bathroom holding a phone. It feels like every other moment you've ever lived through, and that ordinariness is the most frightening thing you have ever experienced, because it means there is no boundary between the normal world and the world where your phone counts down to your death. They are the same world. They have always been the same world. You lift the phone, you rotate it, you angle it toward the mirror above the sink. You see yourself tired, thinner than you were 2 weeks ago. Eyes that have spent 14 days looking at something no human being was designed to see. And above your head, translucent and precise, rendered in the same clean sans serif font you've seen floating above 100 strangers, the number 00 colon 00 colon 00 colon 42 colon 17, 42 minutes, 17 seconds. Counting down. You don't stand up. You don't run for the door. You don't call anyone. You don't do any of the things you always imagined you'd do if you knew the exact minute of your death, because you've spent 2 weeks watching people in their final hours, and you've learned the truth that nobody talks about and nobody wants to hear. When the time comes, most people just sit still. They sit and they breathe, and they let the seconds fall like water through fingers that have forgotten how to close, because there's nothing to do. There was never anything to do. The countdown was always running. The schedule was always set. You just couldn't see it before. The fluorescent light hums at a frequency that lives just below the threshold of conscious perception. A sound you will hear for the next 42 minutes. A sound that will become the backdrop of everything you think and feel and fail to feel in the time you have left. Your reflection watches you from the mirror with an expression you don't recognize. The number ticks down. You think about Gerald Easton and his lukewarm coffee. You think about the mother in the stroller and the pigeons. You think about node underscore 03 typing a warning at 2 a.m. that arrived too late to matter. You think about every person you photographed and cataloged and reduced to a data point in a spreadsheet. And you wonder if this is what they felt in their final minutes. Not terror, not grief, not the cinematic swell of a life flashing before their eyes. But just this, just sitting, just breathing, just the ordinary persistence of being alive in a body that doesn't know yet that it's about to stop. You pick up the phone, not the camera this time, the keyboard. You open the forum, the dead forum, the graveyard of 14 extinguished nodes, and you start typing. You type everything. The update, the shimmer, the numbers, the crosswalk, Gerald Easton, the spreadsheet, the woman in the gray coat, the mother in the fire, the forum, the nodes, the interventions that failed, the system that adjusted faster than anyone could act, the camera that aimed itself at the dying like a compass swinging toward north. You type it because someone might read it. You type it because the URL might be embedded in the next update, pushed to the next 15 phones, and the next person might find the next forum and read this and understand what they are carrying in their pocket. You type it because documentation is the only form of intervention that ever produced results. Even if the result is just knowledge. Even if knowledge is just another form of the trap. The countdown passes through 20 minutes. 15. 10. Your fingers move across the screen with a steadiness that feels borrowed from someone calmer than you. 5 minutes. 3. 1. You finish typing. You press post. You set the phone on the edge of the sink, camera still facing the mirror, still showing your face, still showing the number. You watch it fall through the last 30 seconds. 20, 10, 5, 3, 2, 1, 0. Nothing happens. You blink. The fluorescent light still hums. Your lungs still draw air. Your heart still pushes blood through the network of vessels that constitute the mechanical infrastructure of your continued existence. The mirror still holds your reflection, still tired, still thin, still yours. But the number didn't stop at 0. It passed through 0 the way a car passes through an intersection without stopping, and it kept going. And now the digits are climbing in the other direction. 00 colon 00 colon 00 colon 00 colon 01. 00 colon 00 colon 00 colon 00 colon 02. 00 colon 00 colon 00 colon 00 colon 03. The format is identical, the font is the same, the translucent shimmer hasn't changed, but the value is incrementing, not decrementing, and nowhere in 2 weeks of observation, nowhere in the forum archives, nowhere in the diagnostic logs, nowhere in any fragment of data you have ever encountered has a single person documented what happens after 0. Every node who saw their own countdown reach 0 went silent. You assumed they died. Everyone assumed they died. But what if they didn't? What if 0 isn't the end? What if it's something else? A threshold, a transition, a point of transfer from one category to another, from observed to observer, from endpoint to something that doesn't have a name yet because the people who cross it don't come back to name it. The number keeps climbing. 00 colon 00 colon 00 colon 01 colon 12. 00 colon 00 colon 00 colon 01 colon 13. Your phone buzzes once, sharp and deliberate, and a notification appears on the screen in a format you've never seen in any version of any software on any device you have ever owned. It reads, Endpoint reassigned. Role active. Welcome to the feed. The bathroom light flickers once and then steadies. The camera is still on, the camera is watching you, and you understand now with a clarity that feels less like comprehension and more like a door opening onto a corridor that extends further than you can see, that the camera has always been watching you, not as a subject, not as a user, but as something it was building, something it was waiting to finish. The number above your head keeps climbing. You don't know what it's counting toward. You don't know what active means. You don't know what the feed requires of you now that you're part of it. But you know one thing with absolute, bone-deep, irreversible certainty. You are never going to put the camera down. The screen is bright. The feed is live. And somewhere, right now, someone else's phone is updating while they sleep.